Macbeth by William Shakespeare is a five-act play. Each act represents a different stage in the story and builds upon the previous acts to advance the plot, themes, and character development. Act 1. Act 1 of Macbeth by William Shakespeare sets the stage for the rest of the play, introducing the main characters, themes, and motifs that will be developed in the subsequent acts. The act opens with a scene in which three witches appear on a heath, discussing their plans to meet with Macbeth, a Scottish general, and prophesying that he will become king. The witches vanish, and the scene shifts to a camp near King Duncan's palace, where Macbeth and his fellow General Banquo are discussing the battle they have just won. As the act progresses, Macbeth learns that he has been named Thane of Cawdor and begins to entertain thoughts of becoming king. Lady Macbeth, his ambitious and ruthless wife, encourages him to pursue his desires, and they plot to murder Duncan and seize the throne. Meanwhile, Duncan arrives at Macbeth's castle, where he is welcomed by Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. In the final scene of the act, Macbeth kills Duncan and becomes king, with Lady Macbeth urging him to maintain his power through any means necessary. The act concludes with Macbeth beginning to experience guilt and fear as a result of his actions. Act 1 of Macbeth sets the stage for the play's exploration of ambition, power, and the corrupting influence of unchecked desire. It introduces the main characters and establishes their motivations, and begins to develop the themes and motifs that will be further explored in the subsequent acts. Overall, Act 1 serves as a powerful introduction to one of Shakespeare's most enduring works. Act 2 continues the story begun in Act 1, as Macbeth and Lady Macbeth struggle to maintain their grip on power in the aftermath of Duncan's murder. The act opens with Macbeth wandering the halls of his castle, tormented by guilt and fear. Lady Macbeth scolds him for his weakness and encourages him to remain focused on his goals. Meanwhile, Macduff, a Scottish nobleman and one of Macbeth's chief opponents, becomes suspicious of Macbeth and begins to investigate the murder of Duncan. As the act progresses, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth become increasingly paranoid and isolated. They become consumed by guilt and fear and begin to turn on each other. Lady Macbeth attempts to comfort Macbeth, while he becomes increasingly violent and paranoid. In the final scene of the act, Macbeth orders the murder of Banquo and his son, Fleance. The assassins are only partially successful, and Fleance escapes, leaving Macbeth to fear for his own safety. Act 2 of Macbeth serves as a powerful exploration of the themes of guilt, fear, and the corrupting influence of power. It shows the psychological toll that Macbeth's actions have taken on both him and Lady Macbeth, and sets the stage for the play's exploration of the consequences of unchecked ambition. The act also introduces new characters and begins to further develop the story and themes established in Act 1. Act 3 marks a turning point in the story, as Macbeth's grip on power begins to unravel, and his actions lead to further violence and chaos. The act opens with Macbeth discussing his plans to maintain his grip on power with the murderers he has hired to kill Banquo and Fleance. Meanwhile, Banquo's ghost appears at a feast held by Macbeth, causing him to become increasingly agitated and paranoid. As the act progresses, Macbeth becomes more ruthless and paranoid, ordering the murders of Macduff's family and of a number of other people he sees as threats to his power. Lady Macbeth becomes increasingly guilty and unstable, and begins to hallucinate and sleepwalk. In the final scene of the act, Macbeth meets with the witches again, who prophesy that he cannot be killed by any man born of woman. This fills Macbeth with a false sense of security, leading him to become even more reckless and violent. Act 3 of Macbeth serves as a powerful exploration of the themes of guilt, ambition, and the corrupting influence of power. It shows how Macbeth's actions have led to further violence and chaos, and marks a turning point in the play's exploration of the consequences of unchecked ambition. The act also features some of the play's most iconic scenes and characters, including Banquo's ghost and Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking. Act 4 is a crucial part of the play, in which Macbeth's tyranny and paranoia reach their height, and the consequences of his actions begin to catch up with him. The act opens with Macbeth visiting the witches once again, seeking reassurance about his future. They conjure up a series of apparitions, which provide him with cryptic warnings and prediction. Meanwhile, Macduff joins forces with Malcolm, Duncan's son, and they prepare to invade Scotland and overthrow Macbeth. As the act progresses, Macbeth becomes increasingly paranoid and ruthless, ordering the murder of Macduff's family and having Banquo's ghost appear to him again. Lady Macbeth becomes consumed by guilt and begins to descend into madness, as she is haunted by the memories of the people they have killed. Act 4 of Macbeth serves as a powerful exploration of the themes of tyranny, ambition, and the corrupting influence of power. It shows how Macbeth's actions have led to the unraveling of his own life, as well as the lives of those around him. The act also features some of the play's most iconic scenes, including the witch's apparitions and Lady Macbeth's descent into madness. Overall, Act 4 is a crucial and powerful part of one of Shakespeare's most enduring works. Act 5 is the final act of the play, in which the story comes to its dramatic and tragic conclusion. The act opens with Lady Macbeth's famous sleepwalking scene, in which she is tormented by her guilt and the memories of the people she and her husband have killed. Meanwhile, Malcolm and his army march on Macbeth's castle, and Macbeth prepares for battle. As the act progresses, Macbeth becomes increasingly desperate and isolated, as his former allies desert him, and he is haunted by visions and memories of his victims. Macbeth is killed in Act 5, Scene 8. In this scene, Macbeth faces off against Macduff, who has come to avenge the murder of his family at the hands of Macbeth. The two engage in a sword fight, and ultimately Macduff kills Macbeth, fulfilling the witch's prophecy that Macbeth would be defeated by a man not born of a woman. Macduff fulfills the witch's prophecy in Macbeth by being born via caesarean section, which technically means he was not of woman born in the traditional sense. In Act 5, Scene 7, Macduff reveals this fact to Macbeth, saying, "Despair thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee, Macduff was from his mother's womb, untimely ripped." Act 5, Scene 7, lines 15-18. This means that Macduff was not born in the natural way, but rather was delivered by surgery. This fact allows Macduff to be the one who ultimately defeats Macbeth, thus fulfilling the witch's prophecy that no man of woman born could harm him. In the final scenes of the play, Malcolm is crowned King of Scotland, and he promises to restore order and justice to the country. The play ends with a sense of resolution and closure, but also with a sense of the tragedy and darkness that have characterized the story from the beginning. Act 5 of Macbeth serves as a powerful exploration of the themes of guilt, betrayal, and the corrupting influence of power. It shows how Macbeth's actions have led to his own downfall, and how his pursuit of power has ultimately led to tragedy and chaos. The act also features some of the play's most iconic scenes and characters, including Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking and Macbeth's final battle. Overall, Act 5 is a powerful and fitting conclusion to one of Shakespeare's most enduring works.